everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA. Today myself and Luke are going to look at the Tyrone versus Monaghan League Match in Division 1. A very, very tight game between two rivals. The rivalry between Tyrone and Monaghan over the last few years speaks for itself. There's been some epic clashes, including last season's Ulster final, which Tyrone won by a point. They're so closely matched, and this game again was another example of that, finishing 9 points each. The weather, the conditions were absolutely terrible. Once again, Luke, similar to the Ulster final, it was like a tale of the two goalkeepers, Rory Beggan and Niall Morgan. Rory Beggan kicking a point from play, and his frees were fantastic as well throughout the entire game. Again, another very tight game between Tyrone and Monaghan. Which side do you think would be happier to have got the draw?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny one, really, because at the end, I think both sides legitimately could have won. But I think based on when you look at that game with 20 minutes to go, Monaghan were with a gale force wind blowing at their back, and they were about 1 point down at that stage. I think Tyrone would have been happy to have taken a point at that stage. But the fact is, we all saw what happened, I suppose, at the end when the point goes over the bar and then Beggan is poleaxed in the process of it, and the freeze given out by Joe McQuillan, probably the right call, I think, and because the point doesn't stand unless I think it was Conor Kilpatrick comes in and hits Beggan late and fists over the bar. But I think if Tyrone if that point stands, Tyrone win that game as well. And then look, about a minute later, Monaghan have a chance. Beggan has a long range free. Instead, it's kicked to Conor Boyle, who drops it short. So both teams left behind chances to win it. But look, I think a draw was probably a fair result. It was an absolute bruising kind of encounter. The physicality was insane, and with the conditions and everything as well, it's probably a game which doesn't really show anything what's going to happen in the future. You can't really take a whole lot from it because number one, the style of football later on this summer, it'll be just completely unrecognizable what was played at the weekend. And just with those conditions, I can't see worse conditions like that happening again this year. So look, it was a really entertaining kind of watch just because of how much of an arm wrestle it was. But I think both sides will just be happy to take a point, and then look, they got an extra bit of legs into them as well. But I don't think it'll be too much of learned from this game though at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's another showcasing of how evenly matched the teams are, and obviously the heart that both teams have. Positives for me for Tyrone, Cathal McShane, of course, getting his first start back in the team, as well as that Darragh Canavan came on and he showed a lot of bravery, a lot of courage when he came on. He seems to be really settling into the senior side. And the forwards as well, another youngster, Nathan Donnelly, he played the full game, kicked a good point. There's another find for Tyrone. Obviously, another young player breaking through. For Monaghan, obviously, the positives, they hung in there with the All-Ireland champions for so long. Conor McManus, of course, comes off the bench, kicks a great point. And I'd be interested to get your opinion on this. It's been part of the game for so long. But obviously, Conor McManus comes on. He takes the first free, which I thought was interesting because it was a good distance out and Rory Beggan had been hitting them all game. I know McManus is, one of the best players that I've ever seen. But, to come on, he's not been really introduced into the game. It's his first act to take a free in those conditions. Me personally, I would have left it for Rory Beggan to take it. Out of the hands in those conditions is a lot harder than off the ground. McManus puts it wide, and then there's a whole lot of nonsense going on. Paddy Hampsey, Michael McKernan, etc., right in his face. McManus then kicks the brilliant point, and then he seems to get back right in Paddy Hampsey's face. Absolutely persistent in these games. It happens all the time, especially seemingly with Hampsey and McKernan. They seem to get into the ear of pretty much everyone that they're marking, and McManus seems to bite back. There was that famous incident with Johnny Cooper where he threw Cooper to the ground when Cooper had been kind of mouthing at him all game. But I'm just interested in your perspective on this because it is fascinating to watch and, it definitely is entertaining. But on the other hand, it's pretty sickening in the game that the best players are constantly subjected to just this nonsense and, all this rubbish talked in their ear, and they constantly have to put up with just abuse and bad tackles and off the ball stuff. And I don't know, what's your stance on it?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think it's just part and parcel with the game as well. I think you saw a lot around the midfield as well that it seemed the whole thing was going to boil over around midfield too. Conor Kilpatrick was involved in an awful lot of kind of scuffles around there too, particularly with Aaron Hughes and the likes as well. So it's like the whole game, I thought, with the conditions and everything as well, the ball was just kind of like it wasn't even bouncing. It was kind of getting stuck in the ground and everything as well. The whole conditions, I think, played into it and kind of led into a kind of bad tempered enough second half, and with the tension and everything as well. So look, I think it's I don't think it's as big a problem when we get later on to the year into Croke Park. I think there's a bit as well, but when the faster paced games come around, players don't have the opportunity to do it as well. And this always kind of happens during the league when it's played in these provincial grounds, and when it's I think everything just feeds into this, and lads get more kind of pent up and everything as well. And look, I know you don't like to see it and everything as well, but I think it led to a really entertaining enough contest yesterday. There was kind of a real air about that, like these lads, they didn't really like each other and everything as well. There was a lot of kind of angst and everything as well. So it made it for a very tense kind of finale without ever boiling over as well. Despite all this it never got to a stage where of kind of bad scenes that you don't like to see. It was always just kind of lads standing their ground and just making sure that and they were trying to just lay down a statement ahead of Ulster, and that like you're not gonna bully us here. So I thought it was a real interesting kind of chess match, and I think it was two teams that just didn't want. Were both trying to lay down a marker early on in the season that they weren't going to allow either of them to run over them. Like particularly Monaghan didn't want the then All Ireland champions from their province to come in and boss them. So yeah, look, I think obviously like you don't like to see the mountain and stuff like that as well, but I think it never really got to a level an uncomfortable level, and it probably fed into the what was a pretty entertaining view. And I think even if it was a 9-9 draw.
Yeah, well, it was gripping anyway. That's one thing for sure. Score of the game for me, obviously, Rory Beggan's point deserves a shout out. I mean, coming up and kicking a point from play, that's always going to grab the headlines when a goalkeeper does that. But for me, for pure skill, Conor McCarthy's point outside the left boot, that was the score of the match for me. Absolutely fantastic point from him. Liam Rafferty came up and kicked a lovely point from corner back for Tyrone as well. But very competitive match. And yeah, I think the draw, probably the fair result between these two sides. Guys, that is Play On GAA's review of Tyrone versus Monaghan. An epic, tight match between these two counties once again. Finishes 9 points each. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And until the next video, guys, take care.